All right, let's get right into it. Something is happening in Iran, and it feels different this time. I mean, really different. What we're seeing on the ground right now is a situation the Islamic Republic has been dreading for decades. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down what's actually going on, how we got to this point, and ask the big question: is this the beginning of the end for the regime? You just have to listen to the streets. The chants leave absolutely no room for interpretation. This isn't just about the price of bread anymore. Nope. This is a direct, full-throated challenge to the 86-year-old supreme leader himself, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. People are demanding total regime change, and they are shouting it for the entire world to hear. So, what is this number? 1.45 million. Well, that is the absolutely catastrophic exchange rate. It now takes 1.45 million Iranian rials to buy a single US dollar. Now, to give you some perspective, just 10 years ago, that number was around 32,000. That's a loss of over 98% of its value. This isn't just a number on a screen. It's the total annihilation of people's life savings. And here's what that currency collapse looks like in daily life. 72%. That's the year-on-year increase in food prices. We're talking about essentials like Iranian rice tripling in price. Meat? That's become a fantasy for most families. I mean, this is an oil-rich nation where the regime's own ministry admits that more than half the population is suffering from malnutrition. It's staggering. And if you think this is all just random, chaotic anger, think again. This number, 119, is the number of coordinated anti-regime actions that were carried out by organized resistance networks in a single day. We're talking about planned operations, burning regime symbols, setting up hidden loudspeakers, hanging banners, all right under the nose of a massive security state. This proves the opposition has a level of organization that the regime just can't stamp out easily. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the uprising that's exploding across the country right now. Then we'll rewind to the echoes of the 1979 revolution. We'll look at the regime they built and the decades of discontent that followed. And that brings us to the key question: why is this time different? And finally, we'll look at where this leaves Iran, a nation at a crossroads. Okay, first up, the uprising itself. What makes this moment so incredibly volatile is the mix of people involved. We are witnessing a powerful and, frankly, historic alliance between the economic engine of the country and its future, the students. Let's just unpack this for a second. The shutdown of Tehran's Grand Bazaar for 3 straight days, that is a massive deal. This isn't just some market. It's the nerve center of the merchant class, the very group that bankrolled the 1979 revolution. And now, they've turned on the regime. At the exact same time, you've got protests in over 20 cities, students literally fighting the Baji militia on campus, and in places like Fasa, people trying to storm government buildings. This is escalating beyond protest and into something that looks a lot like open insurrection. Now, to really grasp how significant all this is, we have to look back in time, because what's happening today has some serious echoes of the last time Iran was completely turned upside down, the revolution of 1979. You know, the story of that last revolution really starts here, with what the Shah called his White Revolution. It was his big push to modernize and westernize Iran. But here's the irony. By pushing for things like land reform and giving women the right to vote, he completely alienated the powerful clergy and the traditional merchants, accidentally planting the seeds for his own overthrow. And this timeline just shows you how quickly a country can unravel. What started as small protests in January of '78 just exploded after the Black Friday massacre in September. By December, millions were in the streets. A month later, the Shah was gone. And by February, Ayatollah Khomeini was flying back from exile to take over. A 2,500-year-old monarchy? Gone. In just over a year. So, what replaced that monarchy? This is the crucial part. The revolution didn't bring in a Western-style democracy. It brought in something the world had never really seen before, an anti-Western Islamic republic. And this, right here, this is the ideological DNA of the current regime. The Shah's pro-Western monarchy was swapped for a theocracy built on Khomeini's concept of Vilayat Eflaki. In simple terms, it's the idea that the people need a guardian, the top Islamic jurist, or supreme leader, to rule over them. It created a system where the ultimate authority isn't the people, but God, as interpreted by one man. Okay, so that was the foundation back in 1979. How did we get from there to the crisis we see today? Well, for more than 40 years, a toxic mix of corruption, sheer mismanagement, and foreign adventures has basically created a powder keg of public rage.
We talked about this economic disaster earlier, but when you see it on a chart, my God. Look at that jump. When your currency loses 98% of its value, it means an average police officer's monthly salary of about $171 can't even feed his family. It means the entire middle class is being systematically erased. This isn't just economics, it's a national security crisis waiting to happen.
And that economic failure leads directly to this, the devastating human cost. More than half the population is malnourished, over a third are dealing with water scarcity. The country can't even keep the lights on, with people facing blackouts for 7 hours a day or more. This is the reality for people living on top of some of the biggest oil and gas reserves on the entire planet. So, of course, the question on every Iranian's lips is, where did all the money go? And the answer is right here. It's where the regime decided to spend its money. Billions upon billions poured into foreign wars and proxy groups. $50 billion to keep Assad in power in Syria. $1 billion a year to Hezbollah for 30 years. Billions more to Hamas, to the Houthis, and of course the nuclear program that got the country buried under sanctions. It's why people are chanting, neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life for Iran. So this all leads us to the heart of the matter. Iran has seen huge protests before, in 2009, 2019, 2022, and every single time, the regime survived by using brute force. But there are some really key factors that make this moment potentially fundamentally different. And this comparison right here shows what might be the single biggest factor. In 1979, the Bazaris, that's the traditional merchant class, they financed the revolution. They literally paid for the plane that brought Khomeini back to Iran. Today, they're the ones leading the strikes against the Islamic Republic. When the very pillar that helped build your house decides to knock it down, your entire foundation is about to crumble. So here they are, the key factors. The economic pain is now hitting everyone, rich and poor. You have the defection of the Bazaris, which is huge. The protests are everywhere, not just in one city or one social group. The opposition is organized. On the world stage, the regime's axis of resistance is falling apart. Their military power was shown to be a paper tiger after recent Israeli airstrikes. And last, but maybe most importantly, is the huge psychological shift. Just as analyst Avi Melamed says here, the people are no longer afraid. For decades, the regime's primary weapon wasn't guns. It was fear. The fear of being arrested, tortured, executed. But when people feel like they have nothing left to lose, that fear just evaporates. You can see it in the videos of protesters physically fighting back against security forces. That is a massive, massive change. So, all of this brings us to a nation at a truly historic crossroads. You've got an irresistible force, a united, fearless population, smashing up against what has always been an immovable object, the brutal state security machine. This slide really lays out the standoff. On one side, you have the regime, with its Revolutionary Guard, its besieged militia, and a clear willingness to kill its own people to stay in power. But on the other side, you have a population that has lost its fear, that is united across the country, and is getting support from opposition figures abroad, like the exiled crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, who's calling for the system to come down. And this brings us to the ultimate wild card. Yes, the regime has the guns, but the loyalty of the people holding those guns is being tested like never before. There are viral videos of police officers admitting they're thinking about selling their kidneys because their salary is worthless. I mean, how long can you order a soldier to shoot his countrymen when his own family is starving at home? And so, this is where we're left. The Iranian people are writing the next chapter of their nation's history, in their own blood, in the streets. But will that courage be enough to topple a regime that has perfected the art of brutal survival for nearly half a century? Only time will tell. But one thing is absolutely for sure. The genie is out of the bottle, and Iran will never be the same again.